Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sadhana, and today I am here to carry on the card comparison series. This series has proven to be quite the project, and I'm really enjoying this, loving your requests and all that you have offered through different posts, different emails, and so forth. So thank you. I really appreciate the feedback. This is card comparison number 12, and I anticipate this series will be going on for some time. So make sure that you continue to put in your requests either in the chat or in the comments below. Of course, you can send me an email and ask me deeper questions as well. I am, for those of you that don't know me, I'm an intuitive reader, intuitive healer. I just came off a lovely weekend of Reiki training, feeling completely refreshed, invigorated, and ready to start interacting more. So this was actually a live in-person training with real humans, and it was just so nice to do this again. So I'm really looking forward to creating some perhaps workshops in different places in the world, and both tarot and in different healing modalities, because I think it's time to get out there and connect. I think we're all kind of feeling that. So today we're going to look at the Ten of Swords, and we're going to look at the Death card. So go ahead and get your decks out, pull out these two cards, get your questions ready while I say hello to Gerald, Tarot Stash. Thank you for being here. And Dancing Soul Sister Hannah, welcome. Welcome to you as well too. What did you say here? It is 7 p.m. where you are. Excellent. Well, I'm glad you have joined us here. Okay, so let's get on to these two cards, because I think this is a very common question. What is the difference between the Major Arcana Death card and what appears to be Death in the Ten of Swords? And many of these cards I'm going to talk about from different angles. I talked about Death in the Tower already. I believe we have already looked at the Ten of Swords in relation to the Ten of Wands. And so there's lots of information in this playlist. So make sure that if you are struggling with any of these cards, that you go back and listen to multiple broadcasts, because there's going to be lots of information on this playlist. Obvious difference here is that we have a minor arcana and a major arcana. And I don't know about you, but I treat these cards differently in a reading. There is a weight to the major arcana cards. There's a depth to them. These are significant archetypes. And these archetypes tend to be themes that hang around for a significant period of time, perhaps for a whole year. You know, it's not something that's going to waft in and out in a day usually, because these are patterns that come through our connection with universal consciousness, and they are here for us to learn and to grow. And so they are our greatest teachers. They are a mirror of our journey. So first off, the major is more significant. And that's not to say that our day-to-day life is not significant. But what I find tends to happen is that if we haven't been doing any, I'm going to say practices. So you don't have to meditate, but if you do not have a mindfulness practice in any way, and you have a really, really busy job, you are, you're a super busy mom. I was a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids. I know what this frenetic lifestyle is. I've also been in the career world. When we are really, really busy, it's hard to see the big picture. So the more that we can step back, the more that we can see the minor arcana from a big picture point of view. And I think that is the key in understanding the minor arcana and not panicking about some of these challenging cards in the minors. The minor arcana tells the story of our day-to-day life, how we move in and out of our choices. It talks about our reactions. It talks about our interactions. And yes, it also talks about our teachers and the people that we face. But I think more than that, we have two contrasting big picture, little picture kind of cards on the table here. So as you gain more comfort with reading the tarot and the more experience with the tarot, it's not that you treat the cards differently. It's that there's just a different. How would you describe it, Gerald? You know, there's a different. I used the word weight before. I almost have more of a smile with the minor arcana. You know, it's just not so heavy. And so the Ten of Swords, while it looks like there's a dead guy lying on the ground, it's a wonderful ending, and thank God it's there. Now, both of these cards are endings, and I want to look at some of the details, first of all, in the Death card. There's a few other people that have come in. Hello to Curated Shelf. Welcome, Kristen. Hello. And Project Refined Life. Hello, hello. And Gerald says they aren't as heavy. Yeah, so it's good if you can just really separate. I mean, there's no separation. It's all one interwoven story. Have you ever laid out your entire tarot deck as a mandala? That's a really beautiful exercise to do. There's a few of the big tarot tomes that have instructions on how to do that. Some of the Tarot de Marseille books do that. But that's a really good thing to do to start to look at interactions. And I know I've done that in some of my deep dive videos. So let's look at the Death card. This Death card with Pixie's art, this is the CS Tarot, so it's slightly different colorations, is a bit like a Where's Waldo card. There is so much going on in this little card. So have a look here. We have a rider on a horse who happens to be a skeleton. So Death is riding the skeleton. This horse, this rider, looks an awful lot to me like the Knight of Cups. They are moving in the same direction. They are moving at approximately the same speed. The rider is the same body position. They are both holding something in their left hand. So hello, Shannon, welcome. So this is a card, if I am using a RWS deck, that I want to keep an eye out for. Let's look over here at the back. You see here how we have the same pillars that are in the Moon card. So one of the things with the Death card is that we have a lot of clues about what is coming to an end. We have a lot of clues in this card about what needs to die, what we need to release. And we cannot deny the energy of death. There's a tendency to want to hold on to things. We hold on to things out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of the unknown. There's so many different reasons why we might not want to let go of something and actually allow death to pass through. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons of the Death card, is that if we can allow death to pass through, then we can experience some of the other things we see in this card. So we have also the symbol of the moon. The sun is rising. The sun is rising behind the tower in the Moon card. So this card in itself has a lot of little symbols that we can pick up on. And if we're doing a larger spread, perhaps the Moon card is going to show up. Perhaps the Knight of Cups is going to show up. Another association with this particular card. So Death is 13. And there's a couple of different, hello, Kristen House, welcome. Yes, she does look a lot like the woman in Strength. So perhaps the Strength card happens to show up right next to this card. And there will be something about this woman. Perhaps also you will have the Pope or the Hierophant show up. And because we also have this figure here, maybe the Six of Cups is going to show up because this child looks a lot like one of the children in the Six of Cups. There are endless associations. This boat here, it looks almost like the ship in the Three of Wands has sailed away. And we can go on and on and on. There's so many symbols in the Death card. And that bringing in those connections is going to help you to weave the story of what this death actually appears to be. Okay, so I like what Gerald, yeah, Shannon said, nice that the sun is rising. So we know that if we can release death, it's a turn of the wheel. But we can't deny death. The lesson isn't fully realized unless we let go. Okay, so death is death. Whether it is the death of a home, the loss of a home, whether it is a loss of a marriage, it could be, there's so many. And remember, this is a major milestone. This death signifies something. It could be something psychological. It could be something emotional. It does not have to be something physical. And so really start to think about big things here. This is not the loss of, your keys, right? It's nothing to do with that. And if this card shows up with other cards that might speak to grief and so forth, Three of Swords, for example, this is a whole other topic. And yesterday I did a reading where death actually was talking about death of humans. And we were reflecting on the aspect of grief. And as you know, I'm an intuitive. For those of you that have seen me do readings, I really pick up in my physical body the energy of death. And so for me, the death is the whole idea of the back body, the rib cage where pain is held in the back of the heart space. And so I know if we're dealing with the human experience through my intuition, as well as other cards that show up in the reading. Okay, so yes, this is quite a haughty horse, right? The horse appears tall. One of you used the word, Gerald said regal. There's something, Shannon's words were really good. Where was that? Death appears above the fray of humanity. Death is fearless. Death is fearless. Perhaps also you might have a deck that has alchemical symbols. And I'm thinking of the alchemical symbol where all of the symbols come together in one symbol, much like in the Harry Potter series, where actually I loved that. That was one of my favorite parts. And when they talked about death and they learned about the Philosopher's Stone and the connection of all of those elements coming together, right? And the wand. There's something big. This is a really big lesson. It's a big metaphor. When we look to the left in the Ten of Swords, it's almost as if these two scenes are connected. This is much busier, but this water appears to be the exact same water that we see in the Ten of Swords. This particular human is face down. This human is face up. There's a piece of red fabric, and whether or not that is metaphorically meant to represent blood is a whole other conversation. As you know, in a lot of death cards, there are piercings. There is blood that is spilling forth, and some are much more graphic than others. And yes, I really don't feel like the Ten of Swords is about physical death at all. We need to look at the energy of the suit of swords and what the swords represent. So the swords are a very challenging suit of discovering the mind, discovering the power of the mind, observing our thoughts for sure. And there's also, not only are we talking about the mind, but we're talking about the journey through the voice. So in each of the minor arcana suits, we're exploring a different path to spirituality, a different path to, I don't like the word mastering. You know, we often say that the king is the master of the suit. The king and queen have mastered the suit, mastered the element. I don't think we ever really master an element, but by the time we get to the Ten of Swords, we've been through a long journey of voice, lessons about the voice, lessons about the mind. And you can see here that these are evenly spaced up the body. The top one is in approximately the back of the neck, just above the neck. And then these 10 swords go down all the way, probably piercing a leg. So they're evenly spaced, going down the whole body. Some people refer to these as piercing the chakra points. There are 7 chakra points in the physical body, 6 chakra points in the physical body, and there are 10 swords. But these piercings could represent piercings of particular chakra points. And I haven't actually examined the card to see, you know, which ones are actually piercing a chakra point. But, you know, that's a possible interpretation. On a very mundane level, yes, this can represent all kinds of like acupuncture, some kind of surgery. And any of the sword cards can represent some kind of surgery for sure. It's a good idea to always check in with a real practical kind of conversation. Before I get to that, so also in this card, we have light. So much like the sun is rising in the death card, we also have the sun that is appearing in the background of the 10 of Swords. The rose in the flag looks like the upside down Tudor rose, which was created to symbolize the peace that came after the War of Roses. Yes. And, you know, in a way, it also reminds me of the chrysanthemum too. The white flower is a symbol of peace. It's often a symbol that is used. You often see white flowers at funerals and so forth. And so there's a serenity. There's a serenity for sure to this card. And that horse is not plowing through that field, stepping on people. That horse is very carefully moving through. Kristen House, in the 10 of Swords, is there a significance to the figure's hand position? It reminds me of a yoga mudra. Hopefully that is the right term. You know, I am not, so can you see? Now, this mudra is in the right hand, and it appears that there's 2 fingers extended. So, you know, there's a number of mudras that could be. I would not put this past. I would not put this past Mr. Waite. There was a lot of magical connection. The Golden Dawn practices, I mean, we've learned a lot of them through history. And the more and more I study the tarot, the more and more yogic, spiritual crossover associations that I find. And so I don't know the answer to your question, but I don't think there ever is an accident in seeing something. And so that mudra could be the one of bringing down energy. It could be the one of, yeah. And the mudra's in the right hand too. So we're looking at the hand of action. It almost feels to me like this, having the mudra in the right hand, the solar side of the body, this is a sign, this is a symbol of, getting up and moving forward, doing something rather than just laying there. So that's an excellent question, Kristen. Thank you for that. Let us look at the numerology, because thank you for this curated shelf. I have this all ready to talk about. There's a couple of different systems of associating numerology. And I think the death card is a really, it's a really good one for that. So one is reduction. And death being 13 is 1 plus 3 equals 4, right? So we have a connection to the Emperor card. And what that would refer to is the foundation, the basis for a new start. If we can embrace the energy of death, we're not moving from nothing. And I think that's one of the fears of facing death. Hi there, Neem. Is that if we let go, we have nothing, we're alone, but we don't. We have this foundation. We have that solid number 4 from which to move. And then the other methodology for doing new numerology with the tarot is to use the number 3. And so, especially those of you that work with Tarot de Marseille, this tends to be the way that numbers are associated. So the association the go-to would be the Empress card. And so how can we associate the Empress card with the Death card? And well, if you look in the background of death, we see a lot of growth. It almost appears, it's so hard to, because this is such a busy card, it's hard to see, but this does not feel to me like a barren landscape. It feels like there's potential in the background. There is that opportunity for growth. And from death, we grow. From the lesson of death, we grow. We have a whole different experience. And so it's really beautiful that this is one of the cards that both the reduction, so the addition of the 1 plus the 3, and also looking at the 3 are very, very powerful. And in the same way, when this card comes up, I want to look for minor 3s and minor 4s, because this can tell a really beautiful story. This is how I read. This is how I teach the tarot. And just while I am saying this, I want to tell you something. Okay, much to my surprise, I am teaching a tarot course right now. I believe we're in week 12. It's called Tarot Foundations. And I have put up the thumbnail in my shop for Tarot Foundations 2022. There's already people that are registering for it. And I'm just kind of blown away by this. And so, first of all, I'm honored. And I feel it is very, very inspiring. If you have been considering hopping into Tarot Foundations in 2022, I would suggest that you don't wait until March until register, because there's already people registered, and I'm taking 11 people each year in this course. So I just wanted to put that out there. I was totally blown away when I came out of my Reiki training on the weekend, and there was 2 more people registered in the class. So, yeah, I feel totally inspired. It's really lovely. The 10 of Swords is the quiz, while death is the exam. Love that. Love that, Gerald. Okay, I've got a few other tidbits here for you. The 10 of Swords and all of the 10s and the minor arcana are not the number 3. They are not the number 4, right? They are the number 1. They are the number 1. And this is another major significance between death and 10. So numerologically, we have a different mood. So the 10 is, so for me, the 9s are the completion and the 10s are the turn of the cycle. And they symbolize, and actually I really, in this particular one, I love that we're seeing the right hand of the human. And have a look at the cards that you're looking at right now and just kind of see whether you're viewing the side of action or the side of passivity. Sorry, I forgot that word wrong. You know, it feels like this figure is ready to stand up and move on and pierce through something new. This is the death of ego for me. You know, the whole idea with the Suit of Swords is we learn to release that control. It's about letting go of needing to control, you know, needing to, releasing that need to be the authoritarian figure in the family. You know, I really like the metaphor of death of ego, and you'll see a lot of different deck creators speak to that particular aspect of the death card, as the 10 of Swords, pardon me. Okay. Isn't the hand gesture in the 10 of Swords the same as the hand gesture in the Hierophant? If so, curious of the correlation. Well, the thumb and the, I'm not sure. It's obscure, but if it is, this is another example to pay attention. So let's put the Hierophant back on the table. The Hierophant was here. Maybe I didn't take out the Hierophant. It was one of the cards I didn't take out. But I can get it out for you and we can look really carefully. Mudras have been, so mudra is the Sanskrit word for the like the sign of benediction is the sign, I believe, that's in the Hierophant card. Mudras are a really interesting study, and they are, it makes perfect sense that there is a mudra here and that we are connecting to the Hierophant. It almost seems like a symbol that the lesson has been learned, or to ask the question, has the lesson been learned? And if this is the mudra of the Hierophant, if this is the mudra of teaching, I didn't know there was a mudra of teaching. I'm more familiar with yogic mudras. So in the Hierophant card, we have the 2nd and the 3rd finger raised, right? So this is the mudra that is used. I don't know the answer to that question, and that is something that I would definitely take some time to research. But what does it mean? It means that if the Hierophant card shows up in the reading, that there's definitely going to be a connection to the energy of the Hierophant card. That's one of the things that it's going to mean. Dancing Soul Sister. So Hannah says 10 of Swords means a surrender, finally, not being able to manage a situation or an issue with intelligence, our effort to think, to control, and to navigate. Okay. Many people read even the RWS with more of a Tarot du Marseille energy, more of a numerology energy. And so I'm just flipping through Anna Turian's deck, and I'm going to just bring out the 10 of Swords in this deck. I kept in the alternate 10 of Swords, which is an owl and an older man. It's probably the last card here, gazing at each other. And so the way that this is interpreted has to do with the wisdom, and the wisdom, the journey, the learning. And so here you can see the connection between the Hierophant and the 10 of Swords easily. easily. And so they are a mirror reflection of each other. There is a deep understanding here, a very, very deep understanding. And it takes the journey through the swords to get to that place of understanding. Yes, blessing, benediction. And I believe I have learned this mudra. And, you know, I don't like to use mudras just randomly. What I have learned to have a great deal of respect around mudras. And so I would not take them lightly and take some time to, if you're interested in this aspect of the symbology, to really put some time into studying it. Goddess Danu of Orion, welcome. Thank you, Gerald. Okay, I agree. 9 is completion and 10 is waiting for the next cycle to begin. Thank you, Shannon. That's really nice. I appreciate it. So, what is the difference between the 10 of Swords and death? I think the numerology is significant, very, very significant. And this is going to also bring in perhaps energy. One might need to look at the energy of the wheel or look for the wheel card in a reading. That might really help as well too, to let us know that there's a flow of energy going on, and whether this next turn of the wheel is going to bring some ease or continued challenge will be reflected in other cards. The wheel does not always bring good fortune. Sometimes the wheel is just turning to the next stage, which is about continuing with the process and going to a next level of understanding. I also put the High Priestess card here because one of the things, and Justice is another card that I might look for as well too in a reading where death is going to show up. Sorry, that's the Knight of Cups. Looks so similar to death. So if we are looking for stories and we're weaving tales through our reading, and this particular card shows up, then I'm going to want to pay attention to the High Priestess because she has a message. She is the pillar between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And so there's the message coming through the High Priestess card should she happen to be in a reading where this is going to show up. And I love how the sun here almost is, you know, see how the persimmons are colored with this, with the yellow? It's really interesting to follow and to weave different symbols through a story. Okay, I'm not sure if I finished my sentence. What other cards do I have out on the table? That's all of them. So let's look at one more deck briefly and just see if there's anything else that needs to be said here. I believe we looked at Sasraibito last week. And I love the ethereal quality of the swords in the Sasraibito. It's a reminder. So even though the suit of swords is connected to the element of air, the element of air is the least dense element. And if we're looking at the energy of the pentacle, the pentagram, and the fact that ether, so the major arcana, being the element of ether, the element of spirit, is the element that connects all of the elements together. But for me, the element of air being the highest frequency is most closely connected to the major arcana. So it really speaks to me when we have more of a ethereal quality to the swords. This is one of the reasons why I love my Lily White tarot so much. And the fact that in this particular deck, we have incense. Incense is the, in most of the cards, incense is the used for the, instead of swords. And for me, incense is connected to ether more than air. And I love that crossover of energy. It just really, I don't know, there's something kind of magical in this deck. So we see the smoke. We see the smoke. And if we look at the Hierophant card, in some Hierophant cards, you're going to see the incense as well, too. So this is how I read, right? I start to weave symbols together. And this growth here is thorny. Did you ever notice that? How the thorns that are on these branches that are growing? And one of the things that I pick up in this particular death card is that those thorns represent, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy to turn the wheel. It's not easy to go on to the next step, but it does represent growth. There is a connection for sure to the Empress card. And then Stacia Burrington has also brought in her clothing, it looks like snake skin. So we see this shedding of the skin kind of energy, shedding of a layer. So it's really important when you are working with a deck to look to the little symbols and the artistic interpretations, because they can help to build and add to the to your understanding, to the different layers of meaning in the cards. We also have the stars. You know, in most of the Empress cards, you see the stars in the crown. So we have this connection to spirit. So this is a really, for me, it's a very potent connection. Are there any other questions about these two cards? Thank you, Kristen. Any other questions? Is there, you know, and they're both, for sure, they're both about endings. But the how we know what those endings represent are by surrounding cards. They're by the nature of the question. Thank you for being here, Gerald. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, and Jonathan is going live at 11, I believe. Jonathan is in Maui and a wonderful tarot reader and teacher. Okay. I'm going to switch this back over. Next week, I have a long list, and I think I'm going to go and start to do the requests with the Temperance card. There's been quite a few requests with Temperance and the Star. There's actually 3 or 4 requests with Temperance. So I think I'm going to do that because it can be a very tricky card to read. It's also, will it still be Cancer season next week? Anyway, I think that Temperance is a really interesting card to study in the shift from water to fire as we move from Cancer season to Leo season. So we're going to transition to that. So if you have questions about Temperance, and if you want Temperance compared to different cards, let me know. I think there's already, like I said, 2 or 3 that I've got planned for that. And I might do some of them together. I might do a few different weeks with Temperance. So thank you very much for joining me here today. Was there a last question? Hannah says, Death is holding her softly in his arm, kind of lovingly, supporting to make it more easy. Yeah, beautiful observation. All right, so stay well, and I will see some of you at 12 noon for live readings. Take care of yourself. Namaste.